Hi, Emily. I wanted to thank you for taking the time to talk to me after we both watched your video lesson. I know that when I had came to speak to you during our pre-conference, you had brought up the concern about your questioning and whether or not you were actually asking those higher order thinking questions in class of your students.
Right.
And so after watching that, I did get some data from that. But I wanted to ask you first, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the worst lesson that you've ever taught and 10 being the best, how would you rank the lesson that I observed?
I'd probably put it at like a 5 or 6 or so, just because it kind of felt like a very crammed lesson. I was out the day before, so they had kind of seen that material before that, but it was the first time that I was in front of them and going over it with them.
All right.
So it was kind of like a review, but also a teaching segment at the same time. And so it just felt like a lot of information packed into one segment. So it wasn't necessarily exactly what I would do, kind of on a normal basis.
Right, understood. Well, what about the lesson pleased you? What did you like when you did go back and watch it?
Yeah, I definitely liked that. I felt like they were understanding like beginning, middle, and end, like sequence, and also just basic story elements of character setting, and then that sequence. I felt like they were really able to understand that. That went really well. They were able to identify those different pieces and different parts,
I agree
and
with
then
that,
those
yes.
different details. So that was nice. I feel like we definitely got the grasp on that part of that.
Okay. So what do you think you could do differently to move it closer to a 10 if you were ranking it at a 5 or 6?
Yeah. Like I said, I felt like they got the basic story elements. What I didn't feel like we accomplished as well, was the main idea and then the central message. We touched on it,
Which is definitely one of those higher order thinking, right?
Right,
That
yeah.
you're wanting to see, that you're wanting to push.
Exactly. I feel like we touched on it, and watching back, especially with the central message, as we started talking about it, I was like, oh, there's a lot here that we could really spend a lot of time on because they all had different answers. And the truth was is that I don't necessarily think anybody was really wrong. You just kind of had to go through that and explain, there can be different central messages. It's not always obvious. It's not always, don't judge a book by its cover. It's not always be a friend or whatever it is.
Right.
You can kind of justify it. So I think if I was going to change anything,
Yes.
which I would, yeah, I definitely would take the central message and even the main idea kind of out of it and do that probably as a separate lesson.
Okay.
Just so that we can really focus on that and really talk about everything that is incorporated with that, because I felt like we're trying to get all the major elements and then also like, oh, here's this other really complicated, in-depth thing at the same time. So it was a lot.
Well, again, being a mini lesson, that's why I recorded. It is hard to make sure that you're staying within the time constraint, and then but you are also making sure that all of your students are participating, that they're all getting that voice, that they're all getting an opportunity to really contribute and demonstrate their understanding in a mini lesson.
Right.
So that is completely understandable. Can you maybe tell me some more about what you would like that to look like in your class if you were asking those higher order thinking and your students were demonstrating their understanding?
Yeah, I think I think just having more participation and not necessarily one word answers. I feel like, as we go back and I was watching it again, I feel like I do a lot of leading them into like filling in the blank of the sentence, or, just kind of getting them to like go where I'm going. Which is helpful when we're doing like, basic story elements, but yeah, I just more discussion rather than, one word answers, like answering in complete sentences and really saying, okay, I think this because, and really diving into what they're thinking about and why they're thinking that. So that's kind of more of what I would like to see or be able to develop, I guess.
So this time I was looking at, as I was video taking, I was looking at those higher order thinking and how often you ask those questions. And I will say that the data that I had, you asked those about 70% of the time, but when you weren't getting an answer, you would kind of back off and ask those more basic questions. So if we could measure that change where there was more participation, there was more accountable talk, how do you think we could measure that?
Just maybe in the level of, well, that would be kind of hard to measure, I realize. I was going to say like the level of participation.
So making sure that every student each time does participate
Yeah.
in some manner, is
Right.
somehow interacting with you or engaging with you in the lesson.
Right.
Okay, that's understandable.
And I think also, I mean, I don't really know if this is measurable, but I think as you kind of notice in the video, my kids are really quiet as well.
They're very
so just
getting, and I was in the back of the room. So.
Yeah. I mean, even when I'm in front of them, I still have trouble. I'm like, okay, I need you. We talk about, like loud and proud, but keep pushing that and having students participate confidently.
Okay.
So not just, raising their hands when I ask a yes or no question, but participating confidently and having the confidence to explain their thinking and to talk about it where everybody can hear it, not just,
So would you want your goal to be measuring that everybody is in some way, shape, or form participating, or would you want the goal to be those that are participating are doing it with more confidence?
That's kind of tough. I mean, I don't say that I have not enough participation, because I do think that I have a majority of my students participating.
Right.
It may not be visible in that particular lesson, but I know in a general day, I have almost everybody participating. I have a few that I'm kind of more concerned about on that aspect. But I think probably of those two things, I would be more interested in looking at the confidence and just having them speaking up and just really explaining their thinking and going through all of that.
Do you think the lack of confidence is leading itself, because with your population, the ESOL population that you have, the EIP population that you have in your classroom,
right?
Do you think that lack of confidence is lending itself to not participating for those? I know you said the majority are, but do you think it is a lack of confidence that's lending those that aren't participating to not participate?
I think to some degree, because I think a lot of it is not being confident in the language to express their ideas,
to explain themselves,
right? And I think that's also something that I've wanted to work on that I haven't been able to, is just having those like sentence stems to be able to say, okay, I want, I agree with this because, or just kind of going over those ways that they can have those conversations. But we just haven't been able to really to talk about that.
So what teaching strategy can you use, do you think, that would hit your goal?
I mean, I think probably like those accountable talk stems, I think that would definitely help.
Absolutely.
In order to give them the language to be able to communicate what they want to. But I think also I think you're talking about kind of going back from, if I'm asking those higher order thinking questions and then I like back off of them, because I'll ask it and then they just like stare at me and I'm like, okay, let's go back to crickets, right? Absolutely.
And we all hear crickets sometimes when we teach, because we're like, I know that they understand why somebody responded.
Right.
Sure.
So just maybe working on those more and building them up to being able to answer those questions.
Okay. So from me, how can I help you with that? Do you have an idea of what your next step is and how I can help you with that?
I think maybe like implementing those sentence stems and really, and honestly, I mean, this is something that I'm gonna have to like have time for and find that time for.
Well, which is what I can help you with.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But like having that conversation with them about confidence, about speaking up, about even the confidence to express your ideas and express your thinking, even if you're
In a
not,
complete sentence.
yeah, in a complete sense, and even if you're not right, and I think also talking about how some of those higher order thinking questions, like central message, there's not one right answer. So
Correct.
don't be
Correct.
afraid to share it, because it's not that you're wrong, you just need to back it up. You can't
Right.
just say, I think
Right.
it's this, and then that's it. Just, I don't know, kind of pulling, that's like a lot of different pieces that we just talked about, but pulling all that together and actually being able to put it into the classroom. Makes sense.
Yes, no, it does. And I think that there's a couple of things that we can do for your next steps. I definitely think Accountable Talk is a fantastic strategy in your class. Of course, going back to that whole idea of wrap, I know you've introduced it. I know it's been something that we do. One of the things that I do currently is I give smart beads. So when my students restate the question that I ask and then answer correctly, I throw out a smart bead. And so they get to wear these smart beads throughout the day, and then they turn them in, but they turn them in for points, and somebody is crowned, for the day who's my smart bead winner.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So there's that. And there's also some total participation techniques that we could use for your class for those students who maybe aren't as confident with the language.
Right.
I know you do number talks, and there are some symbols that we use for total participation in number talks that I think can translate into your mini lessons and other subjects as well. So we'll work on getting those together. And Emily, I want to thank you for your time, and we'll see how this works.